Monasticism was a major part of most of medieval Christian lands. It originated in the eastern lands of the Roman Empire. Some pre-Christian practices that were important in monasticism were celibacy, continual devotion to prayer, and living separate from society, which would be the monks and Celibacy is a pre-Christianity practice of abstaining from marriage and sexual relations. It's a choice made by those who want to devote themselves to religion or if they're a church official. By deciding to remain unmarried, they make a sacred vow. A monk is a person that practices asceticism and lives with other monks. They live together in a monastery under the rule of an abbot. They pray 5 times a day and go to Mass every day. To show they are monks, they shave the back of their heads. Monks would not marry and follow the rule of Benedict. A nun is a woman who has dedicated her life to her religion. They live together in a convent. They also don't marry and are referred to as sisters. They make religious vows of poverty, chastism, and obedience. They follow the same monastic rules as monks. They are secluded from ordinary economic and political events of society. The Benedict of Nursia was a Christian saint who introduced monasticism. He founded 12 monk communities in Italy, and he wrote the Rule of Benedict, which was the rules the monks and the nuns followed. He began as a hermit in a cave, but eventually he formed many monasteries, each led by an abbot and under his Rule of Benedict. Regular clergy referred to the people who follow the rule in their life, which are people who are members of religious institutes. Nuns and monks are examples of regular clergy. They have obligations to celibacy, poverty, and obedience towards the abbot. They also balance their lives between devotion and work. Secular clergy were priests who lived in society instead of in seclusion, and they didn't follow a formal code of regulations. They don't have to make religious vows, and they can own their own land. They still are obedient towards their bishops, but they usually are not required to follow celibacy.
The Rule of Benedict was a list of rules written to govern the monks' behavior so that they may live a balanced life of devotion and work, along with the obligations of celibacy, poverty, and obedience to the abbot. These rules were the starting point for most forms of the Western European monastic life. Monasteries were buildings which held monks in a community practicing the same religious values and vows. The monks were here preserved literacy and learning in the early medieval period. Even though many of the nobles were illiterate, monastic scribes preserved ancient Latin works that would have otherwise disappeared. Convents were religious houses that presented problems of oversight to the church. Alike to monasteries, convents planted Christianity in new lands. They also provided refuge for widows and other women who lacked male protection in the harsh medieval world, or who desired spiritual life. Christianity is a religion based on the person and teachings of Jesus in Nazareth, or its beliefs and practices. Christianity was also frequently used within Monasticism, regarding this religion being used in convents and monasteries by nuns and monks. A bishop is a senior member of the Christian clergy. They were typically in charge of certain groups and empowered to confer holy orders. Bishops are considered the successors of the 12 apostles, and bishops typically governed the diocese. A bishop at one point even granted freedom to a cluny. An abbot is a man who is the head of an abbey of monks. If failure were to come upon an abbot in terms of maintaining monastic discipline, this resulted in the growth of a reform movement centered of the Benedictine Abbey of Cluny in eastern France. Alike to an abbot, but in a womanly nature, an abbess is a woman who is the head of an abbey of nuns. They were a head of convent, putting them in a place of leadership over other nuns. A bishop might have had authority over an abbess or abbot.
Benedictine Abbey of Cluny was the center of a reform movement caused by the failure of some abbots to maintain monastic discipline. It was located in eastern France. Cluny claimed eminence and eventually became the largest church in the world. William the Pious founded the Benedictine Abbey of Cluny in 910. He was the first Duke of Aquitaine and completely freed it of lay authority. He made numerous monastic foundations. He had no control of the abbey because he made that the job of the popes. Gregory VII. Gregory VII was a reforming pope. He was pope for 12 years. He was one of the first popes to enforce Western Church ideas for the clergy members, such as celibacy. He is now known as one of the greatest Roman pontiffs. The Pope. The Pope was the head of the Roman Catholic Church and the highest-ranking leader. He helped with discipline and administration. He allied with William the Pious and Benedictine Abbey of Cluny to become a very influential person. Cistercian order. Cistercian order emphasized the life of asceticism and poverty, which set patterns for monasteries, cathedral clergy, and preaching friars, who during the 13th century would become a crucial part of Christian life. Asceticism. The definition is a severe self-discipline and avoidance of all forms of indulgence. This was promoted in Christianity by the Cistercian order and becoming a major part of some Christian lives in the late 12th and 13th century.